Vision Australia.
Blindness,
low vision,
Opportunity.
An important part of Vision Australia's project employability is considering those children that have multiple disabilities. And for those children, what we're really thinking about is promoting meaningful participation. So Karen, can you give us a frame of reference for how we work with children with multiple disabilities?
I think I can, Trish. I think that when I think about children with, let me clarify, when I think about children with severe or profound multiple disabilities, I'm thinking really severe, profound issues that are prohibiting them from full engagement in outcomes like open employment or living independently or managing entirely their resources, managing their money, managing their time, who are always going to need an advocate in life in order to survive, whose needs are beyond the scope of just a quick and easy intervention or even an average amount of intervention. I'm thinking about children who are going to need lifelong supports to be able to achieve their potential. They may need attendant care. Some of these young people may be physically disabled and unable to move, quadriplegics or paraplegics who literally can't do for themselves some of those basic grooming and hygiene skills that we can teach other children to do using alternative techniques. And almost universally, I'm thinking about children who have severe or profound cognitive impairment or challenges. They are children who can't speak in many instances, they're nonverbal. I'm thinking about children who can't express themselves using traditional modes of communication, oral communication or signed communication, who may struggle even with augmentative communication devices to truly express themselves in a meaningful way to other people because they have such limited cognitive ability. But they are real people and they have real feelings and they have real needs and they have worth. Advocacy level children who need that extra support because they can't always do for themselves the kinds of things that we can teach other children to do.
And Karen, these parents are often quite fearful for their child's future and they're caught up in the day-to-day activities that they need to do for their child. How would you, what would you say to a parent about how they should maybe think about their future in a positive way?
I think it's the greatest challenge that parents of children with multiple disabilities, advocacy level children face, is this notion of what's going to happen? What's going to happen to my child when I'm gone? When there is no school, when there's no longer a specific required place for them to go and be supported by other people. I think schools do a really good job with children with multiple disabilities up to a point. And then I think parents really have to ratchet it up a notch in terms of what they want and need and expect for their children. And parents need to articulate that in these meetings that we have at school, these opportunities to discuss goals and objectives with teachers and with therapists and with all the service providers working with your child. And what I would share with you is at about the age of 10 or 11, no later than 12, I would encourage you as the parent to shift your thinking, if you can, from the day-to-day school-based kinds of activities, and I want you to leap forward in time in a sense and think, what do I need to be doing for the future for my child. Because with children who have multiple disabilities, these advocacy level children, we need to start the planning process for that transition out of school and into life much, much earlier than the systems are typically set up to do. And so as the parent, you're going to be that primary advocate. You're going to be the one who's going to need to say to the people at school, say to the people at the agencies, say to your own family and to your child, we need to be thinking about the future. We need to be thinking about that now. And in order to make that happen effectively, I want to encourage you to take a very proactive approach to what's out there, looking at that local community in terms of what's available, what's there, what's already in place for adults with significant multiple disabilities. Are there group homes? Are there facilities for sheltered or supported employment? Are there day activity centers? What do they look like? What's happening in those places? What do you like about them? What don't you like about them? What do you think they would offer your child? So you're going to want to think about, where do I want my child to live? With whom do I want my child to live? What kinds of activities do I want my child to be involved in? What's it going to take for him or her to be successful in the facility where they're going to live, where they're going to work, where they're going to be engaged? What meaningful activities are available in your community? And then you need to back up from that to, what do we need to be doing right now in terms of preparation? What do I need to say to the teachers? What do I need to say to the therapists about what the skills are that are needed to move into those environments? If he doesn't have those skills, you're going to be playing catch up after school on the skills that he needs in order to live successfully in that supported living environment or that group home. If your child is going to need certain skills like feeding skills, being able to feed himself or herself, if that's possible, then you want to be working on that in the here and now so that when they're ready to leave school, that they will have those skills. If it's not possible, you can rule out facilities where they're not able to be integrated in because they don't have that level of support. Where they do have that level of support, you can think about those options. Parents have a huge responsibility because they have to make the call about where they're going to live, where they're going to work, what kinds of activities they're going to be engaged in after school. I feel very, very strongly that as parents, you need to understand and anticipate that we have legal constraints within all of our countries regarding age of majority. The threshold that is set arbitrarily by government as to adulthood. For example, in Austin, Texas, where I'm from, when a child turns 18, it's a magic number that flips a switch and suddenly that child is considered to be an adult at 18, unless you as the parent have gone to the effort to seek out guardianship. Limited guardianship or full guardianship is a big issue if you are talking about a child with severe multiple disabilities and cognitive impairment who's unable to make the kinds of decisions that he or she needs to make at 18 to truly be an adult with adult responsibilities. You find out what's required in your home state, what's required for you to ensure that when your child reaches a certain age, that you know how he or she will continue to receive medical services without the child having to be the primary conveyor of information, because you may need to do that as the parent. Find out what the need is for you to assume that role. What's going to happen in terms of compulsory voting? How's that going to be handled? How is the child's money going to be managed? Think about the things that legally we have to deal with as adults and recognize that your child may not be able to assume all of those responsibilities, that you may need to assume some of those responsibilities, and that you may need to have a designated person to assume those responsibilities after you have passed away or died. It's important to think about this now so that you can lay down the framework, speak with your lawyer, speak with advocates in the community for people with intellectual impairment, because they are the ones who are going to be dealing with this same kind of issue about guardianship. Find out what's required in your state, please.
How do we relate some of the concepts that we've been talking about related to employability and meaningful participation? And to start with, high expectations. I think that's something we're often kind of really sensitive about, how we project expectations on children and families when they have a child with complex needs.
I think it is challenging, and I would recognize that first. The overarching concept is to set the bar as high as your child can achieve. So before you decide that your child can't do something, can't do a task, watch, think about it, and try to analyze whether or not there's a way. You need to give these kids chores to do. I want you to give these kids chores to do. Please give these kids chores as early opportunities to work and as a way to convey to the child that you have expectations of them, that you value them, that you believe that they can contribute in the family. It's the what he can do that's really of importance for us as we work with you to think outside of the box of what is meaningful participation. What does that look like? It looks different for your child than it looks for me. That doesn't matter. It's that we both are participating and that we're both engaged. And so I want you to be thinking as parents, what does my child do? What can my child do? Maybe your child has a beautiful smile. He may be nonverbal, but maybe he's one of those kids that is kind of naturally gregarious, if you will, who smiles, who looks at other people, who giggles when we're saying something that they recognize is supposed to be meant to be funny. If you know your child has that ability, capitalize on it, use it, call it to his attention. Oh, I love the way you smile when you're happy. I love the way that you smile when you hear my voice. It makes me feel loved.
So it sounds like you're helping them establish a role, first in the family, and later on it might be a role that they would have once they go out in the community or live in another place, right?
Exactly. We have to think about what they can do and how we leverage that, as you said, in the family, then at school, and then into the community. And I think as soon as we can, with kids with multiple disabilities, we want to be moving them into the community and working with them in the community, exploring the community with them so that we can be keeping an eye open for what might be available that would work for them into the future.
Yep. And a nice way for them to be contributing.
Exactly.
And that gives them value, doesn't it?
It does.
When they're a contributor in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the child that smiles is going to get smiles back.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think the key for all people, whether you have high ability or whether you have mixed abilities, is that you want to contribute. You want to make some connection to the larger community. We all want to be appreciated and cared about. In terms of options for engagement in the community, it comes back to us as service providers and you as parents to think, what are those opportunities like out there? Is there a tool? Is there an adaptation? Is there some alternative technology or compensatory technology, some augmentative communication device that can be used to facilitate in a way that would make this all work for this child. I think, for example, about some of those very, very simple tools that we use with children who are nonverbal that they can continue to use as adults. I love these little index cards that are printed out or brailled out with very simple words on them like yes, no, sorry, excuse me, help, stop, go. If you're out in the community and someone says, "Are you okay?" and you have enough receptive language that you get that, you might be able to use a card to say yes or to say no. A card where you have your name, your phone number, or your parents' phone number rather, something for your child to use in an emergency.
But some sort of system that allows them actually to do more on their own because they've got a backup plan, right?
Exactly.
So it's not always a matter of you don't have to be there as a parent hovering again, right? Or anything like that, where you just have that support in place and you've thought it over. And I think that's that future lens that we've been talking about in the long-term lens, that eventually, even if it's just small things, you want your child to be able to do more things on their own. You want them to be able to make those social connections, communicate and initiate so that they can be part of a community.
And I think as a parent too, having that expectation and modelling it to other people, that they do pause and allow opportunity for that child to respond in whatever way.
Very important point. Very important point. We don't give children with multiple disabilities time to respond. We often jump in and answer for them or jump in and do for them. And as parents, I think you know your child the best because you are there 24/7. You know your child. Give him or her the time he needs or she needs before you intervene. When you give your child enough time, you give them a message of support and caring that says, I believe in you, I think you can do this, I'm waiting patiently for you to do this. If they can't do it, you can intervene, you can respond, but check back with the child. Have I got this right? You're going to have some system that lets you know that you're on the right track. With children with multiple disabilities, we have to, as parents or service providers, we have to be observant. We have to pay attention to what cues they give us, that they've understood our messages or that they haven't understood our messaging, that they're happy or not happy. We have to make that call. We do need to still step back. We need to give them space to do things and to be places and to mix and mingle, so to speak, with other people. And as you said, Trish, we need to give them time. You can't expect a quick hello. You can't expect a quick head nod. It may take them a considerable amount of time from our perspective. With kids who have multiple disabilities, a lot of times the underlying issue is a neurological issue or a brain function issue where it takes time to process. It takes time to connect things. And often children like this will respond later and after the fact. So you need to model for other people. These kids need some time. If I speak to you as another human being, I need to give you enough time to respond to me. And I say, oh, good morning, how you doing? And you smile. 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes later, I need to acknowledge that. Oh, what a nice smile. I appreciate you greeting me. You need to say what it is you think you're seeing so that that child starts to understand that that worked for him or her in terms of responding.
Thanks, Karen, for all of that. So what we're really trying to say to the parents is that when we're thinking about the children with multiple disabilities, that we're including them in our project employability and meaningful participation. We want to work with them in a different way. Maybe it might look a little bit different, but we're still having those long-term goals in our mind, and we're still including them in this project.
Vision Australia.
Blindness,
Low vision,
Opportunity.